Oh, hi. I'm Joe. How did you guys get here? Maybe you're looking at the internet for something to take your mind off of your day, to help you forget whatever it is that you're stressed about, to help distract you from the insane amount of constant news and social media streams and people calling you and asking you to do things and work and children and life. Oh, sorry. We were here to relax. We are Anxiety Addicts Bedtime Stories, and we take three-sentence, sometimes viral, insane stories from the internet, and a lot of times user submitted insane, embarrassing, funny, sometimes horrific stories, and we turn them into 20-minute bedtime tales to help you take your mind off of whatever's bothering you and let you focus on something else. And we promise we always have a happy ending. Not that kind. So sometimes people say, okay, well, why couldn't I just read a book? And you can't. Reading books is really good. I don't think anyone's going to yell at you for that one. I mean, maybe. But maybe you get into books that do not help you relax and then give you nightmares. And then you stay up until 3 o'clock in the morning finishing a very well written but terrifying and pretty fucked up account of how Pablo Escobar rose to power and got caught. This is called American Killing, in case you were looking for something sweet and unoffensive to help you go to sleep at night. It's by Nick Bilton. It's brilliantly written. The epic hunt for the criminal mastermind behind... Oh, this is a different book I read. Oh, this one was crazy. This is about the guy who started the Silk Road. Oh, I dropped it in the bathtub, but highly recommend this one too. I thought this was my Pablo Escobar book, which I was up last night reading. Yeah, sometimes the things that get our attention really fuck up our dreams in our heads. So the idea here is to give you something that will not stress you out, will not keep you up, and will not have you contemplating the future of any hope for humanity. So here's another option. You guys are going to love this one. How about a Harlequin romance novel? This is how I paid my rent for years, doing romance novel covers. And I am not going to throw the author under the bus here because she's doing what she does very well. But maybe this doesn't exactly get your brain in the most engaged place. Is that fair? So that's what we're doing. We're giving you 20-minute stories to tune in, tune out, and put your brain in a place where you're most likely able to go to sleep or just stop the anxiety spiral. So that's what we're here for. If you're here for it, please. We really like all of those stars, and we like people who subscribe, and we like reviews. And you could even just review us and say, this isn't the worst shit I've ever listened to. I mean, something nicer would be great, but you could do that too. We would appreciate that. It feels like in 2025, the bar has become kind of low. So sit back, relax, and enjoy this really, really great story about something very embarrassing but happy ending that happened to a teenager. And those of us who have a lot of cringy memories from being a teenager, I think will really appreciate this. And because I was a teenager a long time ago, I'm going to put on my reading glasses. This is from a TikTok story, and this is Ellie, and her handle is On a Blue Marble. And Ellie, we love you. There was no better place in the world. You couldn't argue with that. Or at least you couldn't argue with 15-year-old Ellie Cavill. She took this argument very, very seriously. It was a place where dreams were made of. The skies were so blue, so pure, that it was almost fake, like it had been mixed in a studio 4 hours away in Hollywood. The mountains soared into the sparse but fluffy clouds, and the lake was what she hoped heaven would look like. The banks of sand, the freshest air, the super cute boys who showed up in surf shorts and paddleboards. That was Ellie's Lake Tahoe. When her parents, Ronnie and Randy, came bounding down the stairs to interrupt their children's committed summertime TV watching to announce that the family was going there for the week, Ellie jumped up and hugged them each in a way that she hadn't since she'd turned 15. To Ronnie, this was reason enough to take the trip. Ellie raced up the stairs and locked the door to her bedroom. Weeks ago, after much deliberation, she'd bought a new bikini at Pacific Sun at the mall. It was unlike anything that Ellie had ever owned and was too cool, too stylish to wear to the local community pool. But that didn't stop Ellie from trying it on every night before she went to bed and analyzing the look in her full-length mirror. To Ellie, this bikini was so much more than a bathing suit. It felt like a costume. She remembered how she felt in her first grade school play when she landed the starring role as the Little Red Hen in The Little Red Hen. She'd felt utterly transformed when she put on her red feathered cape and saw herself not as a 6-year-old Ellie, but as a hardworking member of the poultry family. Her mother had the brilliant idea of stuffing Kleenex into the fingers of yellow dishwashing gloves and slid those on as chicken feet. Ellie felt like a star. Unfortunately, or fortunately, The Little Red Hen was the first and last theatrical accomplishment of Ellie's life. It turned out that public speaking was not her forte, and she had a minor panic attack on stage before the hen could even announce to the audience, with the writing's intended self-righteousness, "Then I will plant the wheat myself." Since then, she'd shied away from the spotlight. Now she had to wonder, was this the piece of the puzzle that her life was missing? Putting on that brand new bikini was the first time in her life that she'd felt surprised by her own appearance. Tying those straps around her back and neck turned Ellie Cavill into someone that she barely recognized. It was the material. It was the cut. It was the vibe. Or maybe there was some kind of grown-up magic threaded into the weaving of the suit. Because, not gonna lie, that's how she felt. She folded it up into her gray duffel bag along with 14 extra outfits, including 6 pairs of cut-off jean shorts for the 5-day trip, because being 15 requires a lot of planning and options and shorts. As Ellie sat in the backseat of her parents' Volvo SUV, she turned up Jason Derulo on her iPod mini and watched the California landscape roll by, and she wondered about her future. So many of her peers seemed to have such a clear idea of who they were going to be and where they wanted to go. And it was always something big. Her best friend Marco wanted to go into politics. Her next-door neighbor was dead set on moving to LA to becoming an actress. Even Kyle, her brother, seemed to think that he had a potential future in the world of competitive trick skateboarding. Ellie couldn't imagine any of this. First of all, she broke her wrist the only time she'd gotten on Kyle's board, but also she couldn't imagine wanting a job where you were the center of attention. That's because, come to think of it, she had never been the center of attention. This realization came to Ellie as the family car made its way through the national forest, passing Blue Canyon to Crystal Lake. Ronnie passed the insulated igloo bag filled with her famous turkey sandwiches. Ellie unwrapped one but barely tasted anything. Her mind was elsewhere. Why had she never been in the spotlight? Did she purposely avoid it? Or worse, was she just not good enough to stand out? And why, oh why, oh why, had this thought never occurred to her before? Was this why she'd never had a boyfriend? At the moment this cavalcade of intrusive thoughts steamrolled through her brain's amygdala, Ronnie glanced in the rearview mirror, catching a glimpse of her daughter's panicked face. "What's going on there, Popeye?" When Ellie was 3 years old and first fell in love with being in the water, she used to make her family watch her flex her biceps after every swim. The nickname stuck. Ellie met her mother's gaze. Her brother was deep into his video game, his weirdly large headphones blocking him from reality, and her father was listening in on a conference call for work. Ellie felt okay with being honest. "Why do you think no one notices me?" Ronnie's face fell as if she were on one of those elevator rides at Six Flags. Parenting a teenager was full of these heartbreaking moments. "Sweetheart, people do notice you. They notice your intelligence, your independence, your intellect, and you are one of the top rowers in crew." Ellie tried to take the compliments. Her mom was being sincere, but it felt like she just didn't get it. "Yeah, but none of those things matter to other 15-year-olds. Ronnie pursed her lips and shook her head. "Look, everyone has their time in the sun. And I know how hard it is to believe your old mom, but I promise you, if your time in the sun is when you're 15, it's a waste." Ellie nodded. She knew from so many movies that the nerds in high school ended up being happy as grown-ups and that the mean girls ended up drunk and angry like in Romeo and Michelle's high school reunion. But what was she supposed to do? Close her eyes and just will the next 3 years to go by? It didn't really seem like a valid option. I guess that's the thing about life, thought Ellie, feeling wise beyond her years. You just have to live it. Ellie closed her eyes and faded into a daydream about people quoting her brilliant words. She was half asleep when Randy pulled the family car into the cabin. It was a perfectly cozy 100-year-old place that had been handed down through 3 generations to some old friends that Ronnie had known since college. Ellie hopped out of the car while it was still running and dashed to the side door, which was always open. She loved the smell of the cabin, a sort of comforting oldness mixed with pine sol and sunshine. "I call upstairs," she yelled for 0 reason. Kyle undoubtedly still had his headphones on and wouldn't hear her. "Not like he hears me with his ears uncovered," she thought to herself, bursting into the queen room with a happiness usually reserved for college acceptance letters and puppies. It was okay. Kyle was a dude. Nothing seemed to faze him. And even though he was pushing 6'2", he didn't seem to care about sleeping in a twin bed. Ellie dumped her backpack on the worn quilt and opened up the creaky windows to let in that fresh mountain air. It was hotter than usual. The cold lake would feel incredible. "Can we go swimming now?" Ellie called downstairs. "Absolutely," Ronnie yelled back. "Your father will be off his call in a minute. Why don't you and Kyle put the boat on the roof?" Now, the boat was an army green rowboat that had probably been made before the advent of color TV. It could fit 2 adults comfortably and 3 adults uncomfortably. They'd been calling it Turtle since before anyone could remember, and Ellie loved it. She hopped down the stairs 2 at a time and found Kyle still glued to his game. She punched him squarely in the arm to get his attention. It worked. That was the thing about being on the crew team. You got really, really strong arms. "Ow!" Kyle was not happy about this. "Help me with the boat." Kyle scrunched his face at his sister and rubbed his bicep. "You can obviously lift it by yourself." "Come on, Kyle, let's go. It's perfect out." Kyle nodded. As much as he loved Call of Duty, he also loved the lake. Soon the family was parking in the trees and carrying Turtle down to the water. Ronnie and Randy laid out the beach blanket, set up their chairs, and pulled out their New York Times bestsellers that had been sitting unread on each of their respective bedside tables since the beginning of the summer. Kyle rolled up his towel and fell asleep in the sun before Ellie had even finished applying her tanning lotion with the precision of a neuroscientist, or the precision of a 15-year-old girl. She looked around the beach. There was a group of very, very cute guys chatting on their towels about 30 feet from the family. "Popeye, go enjoy yourself," her mother said without looking up from her novel. As Ellie stood there in her new, brightly colored, crocheted bikini, she felt the worst kind of invisible. And that's uninvited invisible. And it can sting worse than the giant horseflies in August. She craned her neck and squinted her eyes. How was it possible that literally 0 eyes were on her? Was this her lot in life, her future? Was she destined to be the human version of dusty furniture in the forgotten room of life's mansion? Okay, that was a little dramatic, but that's how she felt. Without anyone noticing, of course, Ellie pulled Turtle out onto the lake. The crisp water made her feet feel like she could run up and down the beach 100 times. Oh my God, how Ellie loved it here. She climbed into the little green boat and rowed away from the shore, her arms falling into the familiar rhythm before her brain told them to go. The lake was glassy and calm, reflecting the bright sun and the Hollywood blue sky. Nothing could be more perfect. Sure, she could not be battling a major and potentially life-altering identity crisis, but the weather and the vibes were absolutely perfect. Ellie rowed and rowed. She steered the boat close to the shore and then further out, following schools of tiny fish in the shadows of the sparse clouds gathering at the peaks in the mountains. This was the thing about rowing. Ellie could completely disappear from reality. She didn't know if she'd been out on the water for 20 minutes or an hour. That's how deep the meditation went. And possibly she didn't notice the group of guys swimming out to her and Turtle until they were practically hanging off the side of the boat. Ellie felt her heart try to escape out of her mouth. Oh wait, that was her lunch? All that famous turkey? Before she could find her bearings, the guys were chattering at her 1,000,000 miles an hour. They were excited, their faces elated, their voices indistinguishable from one another. They were energetic and clearly super fun and cute and good swimmers. And there was only one problem. Ellie didn't have a fucking clue what they were saying because it was all in French. Ellie didn't take French. She studied Latin. Great, she thought to herself as the most handsome of all the dudes pointed to the beach and made some gesture that she could not interpret. She thought to herself, so happy I took Latin, in case I want to flirt with a guy from ancient Rome. Amidst all the excitement and katzenjammer and long vowel sounds, all Ellie could comprehend was that they were asking her something, and she got the feeling that they all wanted her to say yes, which was great because it was basically the only word she knew in French. Oui, Ellie answered with her most come-hither smile on her lips. Oui, the second most handsome man answered back. He looked thrilled. He also looked like he would want to hold hands and walk on the beach during sunset. And c'est vrai, said another, who wasn't the most handsome, but with abs like that who needed to look at his face anyway. He gestured to his chest. He didn't need to. She was already staring. So Ellie nodded away, clearly making these guys' day. They thanked her in English. She assumed that thank you was the only phrase they knew, and watched them swim back to shore, their tan skin glistening as a metaphor for, again, the perfect day. Ellie shook her head. Of course, I can't even talk to the hottest guys on the beach. Est pessimium. And for a moment, she thought that the Latin phrase summed up the moment quite perfectly. She turned Turtle around and slowly made her way back to shore, broken from the concentration of her methodical rowing, now just sort of drifting towards her family. Soon she was close enough to see her parents' faces. They were not happy. Ellie! Ellie! Popeye! Her mother screamed, making some gesture that was either ridiculous or obscene. Since Ellie had no idea what her mother was trying to communicate, she couldn't differentiate between the two. Her father, on the other hand, was silent, his face a shade of red that nobody on a beach would want to see. Cover up! Ellie could finally make out her mother's words. She quickened her pace and paddled closer to the shore. She knew she wasn't burned. She'd put on a shit ton of sun lotion. She looked at her shoulders to make sure. But her shoulders didn't have a chance of getting her attention. Because that's when she finally noticed that her adorable crocheted bikini top was not where she had put it on when she left the beach. No, it was somewhere else. The triangles had migrated to her armpits and her boobs were on full display for all of Lake Tahoe to see with eyes. She dropped her oars and grabbed her crocheted fashion statement. Her eyes darted to the spot on the sand where the handsome French guys had set up camp, begging the universe for them to be looking at something else. It turns out she didn't need to worry, because something else, even less appropriate, was happening at that very same moment. As Ellie got closer to shore, she heard a racket. The beach had erupted with commotion. There were angry fathers, hysterical mothers, horrified children. People were yelling and screaming, and no, there wasn't a bear. There was, however, the group of French guys playing beach volleyball. And they were all buck-ass naked. It took Ellie an entire minute to piece together her role in this unraveling drama. What had the dudes been asking her for? Why were they so happy? Oh, the French guys wanted to know if Lake Tahoe in Northern California was a nude beach. And they'd asked Ellie because she was unknowingly topless. And they were also excited because French people love nude beaches. This may not be true for the whole country, but it was definitely true for these five guys. Horrified, Ellie ran to her family's blanket, dragging Turtle along behind her. Ellie, that suit is inappropriate, her mother chastised. That's nothing compared to the naked guys, her father choked out. Maybe we should get going. Kyle was now embarrassed enough to have woken up and be in problem-solving mode. Yes. Ellie grabbed her towel and sunscreen and every single family member's beach bag, running to the car in her bare feet. She dropped it off at the end of the parking lot and hid behind the side of the car and waited for her family to catch the hell up. You know, I'm going to tell everyone about this, Kyle said as he slowly opened the back seat of the baking hot car. Ellie nodded. She knew. She also knew that going unnoticed was not always a bad thing. And she was fine waiting for her time in the sun. Thank you, Ellie. Thank you, Anna Blue Marble. Thank you guys for listening, subscribing, rating, liking, and all of the things. If you liked this, there's going to be a lot more up on our channel. So please subscribe, like below, and have sweet dreams. Good night.
Thanks for listening. If you still can't sleep, why not do some shopping on the small business links at anxietyaddictsbedtimestories.com and support some really cool people. And don't forget to subscribe and to send us your stories. Sweet dreams.